So this morning we're going to be in Numbers chapter 12 as we continue on in the life of Moses. As we come closer and closer to the end, there's still things that are happening. So in Numbers chapter 12, they've been at the foot of Mount Sinai for quite some time. They've just recently departed and started moving on. And so in Numbers chapter 12, we get this incident in Moses' life where he has to deal with a type of complaint and criticism that he hadn't really been dealing with before. In chapter 11, the people are complaining, as they always do, about how hard it is out in the wilderness. They complain about the food that they have, and complain about the food that they don't have, and they complain about a lot of different things. And so Moses is dealing with the complaints, but then we get to this incident in his life, which I think he hadn't really expected to come, because he ends up getting criticism from a rather unexpected source. So Numbers chapter 12, this is what it says. Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite. They said, "Does the Lord speak only through Moses? Does he not also speak through us?" And the Lord heard it. Moses was a very humble man, more so than anyone on the face of the earth. Suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "You three come out to the tent of meeting." So the three of them went out. Then the Lord descended in a pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance to the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When the two of them came forward, he said, "Listen to what I say. If there is a prophet among you from the Lord, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my household. I speak with him directly, openly, and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" The Lord's anger burned against them, and he left. As the cloud moved away from the tent, Miriam's skin suddenly became diseased, resembling snow. When Aaron turned toward her, he saw that she was diseased, and said to Moses, "My Lord, please don't hold against us this sin we have so foolishly committed. Please don't let her be like a dead baby whose flesh is half eaten away when he comes out of his mother's womb." Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "God, please heal her." The Lord answered Moses, "If her father had merely spit in her face, wouldn't she remain in disgrace for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. After that she may be brought back in." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on until Miriam was brought back in. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. So unexpected criticism, unexpected complaints, unexpected opposition. It's unexpected because you don't know where it might come from. And honestly, we all are going to face things in life where people are going to let us down, people are going to disappoint us, people are going to criticize us, people are going to stand against us. And sometimes it's going to be people that we expect to do that kind of thing, but sometimes it's going to surprise us. Sometimes it's not going to come from where we expect it to be. And when we look at Moses' life, I mean, his whole life was essentially filled with dealing with criticism and complaints and all of that. And that's just a fact of life, especially in any kind of leadership. You realize that's just part of what it's all about. But the reality is that's part of life. Everybody faces this. So how do we deal with this? Well, first of all, there are some things that we have to understand so that we can understand the things that we should do. So some basic principles about criticism and complaints is, number one, it can come from those you least expect it from. Sometimes it's simply because they don't think through what they're saying, or sometimes it's because there's some sort of friction that is developed. That's why families tend to argue more than other people, the people in your own household. And you siblings argue a lot amongst yourselves. And lot of that is just being in close proximity, creates friction, which creates short tempers, which creates people saying things they really shouldn't. It creates irritants. Sometimes you're more irritated by these things. But in any case, sometimes people close to us can be the source of opposition and criticism and complaining and other forms of heartburn and indigestion for us. And so it was with Moses. It was Miriam and Aaron. It was his sister and brother that had this particular complaint this time. And Miriam is listed before Aaron in this, and most commentators and scholars will say putting her first indicates she was probably the instigator of this, and then when you get further on and you find out she was the one that God punished, she was probably really the one that started this. Aaron, there's a number of reasons why maybe God didn't punish Aaron as severely, maybe because he was the high priest and so had a special standing, and that's a possibility. I tend to think it's Aaron was just sucked into this. And we've seen this before, the golden calf. Remember, the people came to him and said, here, make something for us, and he did. And then he declared, tomorrow will be a festival to the Lord. And some scholars think he was trying to set the calf up and with God and say, hey, there's two gods. I tend to think he was just kind of a weak, cowardly individual that he does what he's told. He doesn't want to let people down. He wants people to be happy, so he goes along with a lot of stuff while still trying to stay focused on God. Perhaps that's a stretch. Perhaps that's just my optimistic thinking about Aaron. But either way, I think he got sucked into this. Now, so opposition, criticism, it can come from unexpected sources. And it might not always make sense, because it can be about anything. In this case, there are really two things that they complain about Moses, and that is, number one, that they complain about his wife, this Cushite, which means someone from Ethiopia, the area south of Egypt. Some say that his wife Zipporah would fit the description, because some think that Cush would extend over to where she and her family originated. Others argue otherwise. Some think this might be, she might have passed on and this was the second wife that he married. Either way, it doesn't really matter the details of who, it's so much as it's Moses' wife. Now, some, as a matter of fact, many, to be honest, probably most, believe that that's just a pretense for them complaining about Moses. And they don't like the fact that Moses is the main leader. They don't like the fact that Moses gets all the credit for leading the people. Because, they go on to say, does the Lord speak only through Moses? Does he not also speak through us? So they think that was the real criticism. However, there are those that believe that the wife was the problem, and considering Miriam is the one that was picking this fight, she might have been jealous of Moses' wife. If it wasn't for Moses' wife, Miriam would probably be the primary woman in the camp. She would be the one that would be considered the leader of women, or the lead woman. And we've seen in the past where Miriam has led. When they came out of Egypt, she led a worship for the people. And she led the people in singing songs of worship to God for the deliverance. And we see her, even before that, we see that she played a pivotal role in Moses' early life. Because when he was put in the river, she followed him and kept watch over him. And when he was found by Pharaoh's daughter, it was Miriam that offered to go get a nurse for the kid, a nanny, if you will, and ran home and got Moses' own mom. So Moses' mom got to raise him. So Miriam has played this vital role, and so she feels perhaps that she deserves a little recognition. And understand, they're getting old at this point. I mean, Moses was 80, when he went to Egypt to pick them up, and they've been out of Egypt for a little over 2 years now. So they're getting on in age, and she's older than him. So she's probably getting a little tired. So it makes sense to me that perhaps she's picking this fight and draws Aaron into this fight over this issue of the woman. But the reality is, it doesn't really say which one is primary, and so scholars are going just often based on what they feel would be the primary argument. And the reality is, we don't know, and oftentimes in life, even when people are criticizing, we really don't know what's going on. You ever had somebody say something to you and say, why would you even say that? Is that why because what they said is bad, but maybe there's something behind what they said. So maybe they're complaining about Moses' wife because they're really upset about Moses, or maybe they're complaining about Moses because they really don't like his wife. And honestly, it probably doesn't matter which is the primary, and they might both have equal force. The reality is, Moses was probably just confused. So, what is your problem? And fascinatingly enough, the fact that it's his family, the ones who are supposed to be deciding, the ones that are supposed to be upholding him, I mean, and Aaron's been by him through thick and thin from the very beginning of the whole Exodus thing. So they've kind of been partners in all of this, and whether Aaron and Miriam felt like they were partners, they really have been, and Moses has treated them as such. And so this was probably kind of a shock to him, and then these complaints are kind of out of left field, probably from his perspective. And so it would be difficult to deal with. And so then comes the third principle of facing this kind of unexpected criticism, and this is the most important principle. Okay, don't miss this one. At the end of verse 2 of Numbers chapter 12, there's a very important statement, and it says, "And the Lord heard it." See, Moses a lot of times felt all alone. Moses, being the leader of all people, he oftentimes went to God and expressed this feeling of aloneness and isolation, and sometimes even asking God, are you paying attention here? Why do you let this happen? Do you know what's going on down here? Well, the reality is, yes, God knows. And when this happens to you, guess what? God knows. The Lord hears, the Lord sees, the Lord knows. So when you're going through things, you're not going through it alone. And even though God might not be acting as quickly as you think he should, or as quickly as you'd like him to, the reality is God knows and God sees. And not only does God know and see, he actually cares. Okay? He feels for you. You know, Jesus told the crowd, "Blessed are you who fed me and clothed me," and so on and so forth. And then they said, "Well, when did we ever do all these things to you? When did we feed you and clothe you and visit you?" All this, he said, "Well, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me." And likewise, when you failed to do it to the least of these, he said, you failed to do it to me. In other words, what happens to you, God takes personal. And Jesus came and made it very clear. He takes it personal. When things happen to you, so when you're upset about something, chances are God is upset too, unless you're upset about the wrong thing. But even then, God feels for you. God understands. He knows. And see, we know he knows because he sent Jesus. And Jesus went through everything that we have to go through. So he understands. So you're not going through this alone, and it's not like God's up there just ignoring your problems. It's just God has his plan of how to deal with things. Now, it's not always going to turn out as quickly as it did here. Now, this, in Moses' case, I mean, he summoned all three of the siblings to the tent. And it was like being summoned by your parent when things have gone wrong. I am sure there was a little consternation, or perhaps they were a little arrogant going in there, thinking, "Oh boy, I got to go talk to us today. Yeah, we're important people. And they found out really quickly this was one of those, as they say, come to Jesus meetings that they were going to have with God, and it was serious, because God was not happy. And so those are the principles. Okay, so three main principles. Criticism can come from anywhere, and sometimes comes from people very close to us. It can be about anything, and it doesn't even have to make sense. Oftentimes it won't, because oftentimes there's underlying issues that really don't get voiced. Jealousy is the main thing here, whether it was Miriam's jealousy of Moses' wife, or whether it was their jealousy of Moses being the main leader. Whatever, it seems jealousy was an underlying issue, and oftentimes there are unknown underlying issues in people's lives that cause them to criticize. And third is, God knows and understands and He cares. So what do you do? How do you face these things? How do you get through these times of unfair, unexpected criticisms? Well, first of all, you have to remain humble. In other words, you've got to check your attitude and keep the right attitude through it all. And the attitude that God has consistently talked about throughout the entirety of the Bible is humility, being humble. As a matter of fact, it says Moses was very humble. He was a very humble man, more so than anyone on the face of the earth. He was the most humble person of his day. And so he had the right attitude. And I think that's inserted in there because it's important for us to understand that the criticism was unwarranted. He didn't deserve this criticism. But it also sheds light on how he's going to be able to handle it, and how he's going to be able to handle it well. How he's going to be able to do the right thing, even though it's going to be really hard. Because when somebody's in your face accusing you of stuff, especially stupid stuff, it's hard not to get back in their face. It's hard not to put your fist in their face and allow your 5 fingers to do some talking for you. But Moses didn't do it. He maintained his humble attitude, which is what we must do. And that's what Jesus did. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who was accused unfairly. Jesus died on the cross for things he never was guilty of. He was accused of many things. But he maintained his humble bearing through it all. And so that's what we need to do. That's what we should do. Maintain that humble attitude. Second, we should maintain our compassion for people. It's way too easy to start hating somebody who starts hating on us. When they start saying bad things to us, about us, when they start stabbing us in the back like that, it's real easy to lose our compassion. But we don't see where Moses ever retaliated against them. As a matter of fact, what we see is that when Miriam was punished, God apparently gave her some sort of skin disease that was temporary. But Moses maintained his compassion for her and actually prayed for her, which is the third thing we should do, is pray. Pray for people who do these things to us. Pray for people when we don't understand why they're doing the things they do. Pray even if we do understand why they're doing the things they do. Pray even if they are being malicious. Pray even if they are enemies. Jesus himself said, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Do good to those who mistreat you. And this is what Moses is doing here. He's praying for his sister. And it's a heartfelt, God, please heal her. So here she is. She's causing a lot of trouble, and he cares. And because he cares, he prays. We also see that this compassion about, in the end, in that God said, separate her for 7 days. The typical thing is if somebody brought dishonor upon their family, and it would have to be pretty severe, the father could essentially dishonor them, shame them. That's what this whole, her father had really spit in the face. Well, it would take a lot for a father to spit in his kid's face. But that was a way of showing that they had dishonored the family and they had to be cut off from the family. Well, the time scale for that was apparently 7 days. Essentially, you're kicked out of the family for a week. And you're separated, not just from the family, but from the whole community. You're isolated, you're quarantined. It's like, go sit in your room for a week and think about what you've done. You guys thought it would be bad to go sit for 10 minutes. They got kicked out for a week. But it says that she was confined outside the camp and the people did not move on until she came back in. See, they could have. They could have packed their stuff up, and she would have had to tag along in the back of the camp, kind of separated. But the reality is that would, A, that'd be a really tough trip for somebody, and B, that'd be kind of dangerous wandering through various territories. You never know what kind of roaming bands of bad guys are out there. And someone who's separated, even just a little bit, is at more danger than someone who's part of the main group. And so they winged it for her. Because Moses still came. See, we can't stop caring about people just because they do things that hurt us. We can't stop caring about people just because they say things. I mean, think about Jesus. Imagine if he would have decided he was going to stop caring because people mistreated him. Or maybe think about it, he would have stopped caring about you because of things you've done or things you've said. He didn't stop caring. As a matter of fact, he cared to the very end. Even as he was hanging on the cross. He looked down on the Pharisees who were sitting there ridiculing him. I mean, they were making fun of him. And he prayed, Father, forgive them. Because they don't know what they do. He cared to the very end. And as his followers, we can't stop caring about people. Because the people who are doing these things to us, they need Jesus. They need him. Even if they're a Christian already, they still need him. And when they're doing things that aren't like him, it reveals their desperate need for him and their desperate need to allow him to step into their life and whatever their problem is, help them fix it. You and I are very limited in our ability to help fix other people's problems in life. Some problems are just way bigger than what we can handle. But Jesus can handle it. And so we can't stop caring about people because, honestly, they need Jesus. And if we stop caring, they might never get it. Now, we can't always just let criticism roll off our back. Some people can. I envy those people. I'm not like that. But we can't allow the criticism to control our lives. We have to maintain our humble attitude. Maintain our compassion. And we need to pray for people. Because that is what Jesus did for us. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day, and we do thank you that indeed you've maintained your compassion for us, even when we're the ones that have been in it. We thank you, Father, that when we are the ones who are wrong, we know that you see, you know, you understand, you care. And you've shown us what we can do to successfully navigate through those times when people are treating us unfairly, when they're criticizing us, when they're hurting us. I pray, Father, that you would help us to maintain the right attitude, that humble character, that compassionate heart that will lead us to pray for people and to seek their good no matter what, so that we can truly, honestly, and accurately reflect you. For it's in Jesus' name I pray.